Hey, good evening, good evening. I am Renee Williams, and today we are on step 10. And step 10 is something that we have to do on a daily basis. I know I do, and I'm sure you have to too. But we want to take a moment of silence for the struggling addicts who are suffering in and outside of the walls. Take a moment for them. To the God of my understanding, we thank you for being an awesome God in our lives. And, this step right here, before I get to that, let me give a shout out. Give a shout out to the loved ones that is gone. May you rest in peace. To the families that was left behind, may you continue to strive and go on and keep your loved one in your heart like I do, because nobody is perfect. We all make mistakes. We all find ourselves even clean making mistakes. But we are aware. That's what I like about this step 10, because we are aware of the steps that we make, even being clean. And I love that about these steps, especially this step 10. Give a shout out to the therapists, the counselors who make it possible for struggling addicts who come inside of the doors of the unknown, and you all help them to understand that this isn't a disease of an addiction. Thank God for NA, 12 Steps of Narcotics Anonymous program. It always keeps me grounded. It makes me look at myself. It makes me even understand the reason why I think I have a reason to do the things that I do. But I just want to give a shout out to the group homes, the women's, the men's. They're struggling, but they're making it. A lot of them is making it. A lot of them is staying clean. A lot of them is changing their minds and their lives. And a lot of them have went to do things beyond they believe. And that's what recovery does for you. Recovery is a place where you're never alone. Don't ever think that you're alone in recovery, because you're not. It's the best friendship you can have, the best friends you can have, and it keeps you also grounded, that you have your immediate family, and then you have your recovery family, and you can't lose that way. There's no way you can lose, if you decide to stay grounded. This step has been working on me for years, and I still have to take a look at myself, some things, and sometimes you have to look at yourself sometimes. It's Sunday. God has blessed us and have a safe week. A lot of stuff can happen through the week, but we stay neutral. A lot of weddings to Mark and Nicole. They got married on yesterday, and it was beautiful. Congratulations, Mark and Nicole. And it was another couple, I can't think his name, but they got married too yesterday from recovery. And that's a blessing. Life shows up and life goes on. Okay, so now, this step we are on, I like this step, and I try to give you different alternatives and how I look at things and how you may look at things. And this step is very awesome, and I love this step. And this step says we continue to take a personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Yeah, well, that's what I like about this step, because this step identifies with feelings, emotions, acceptance, and you look at it and you see on a daily basis you do that in some kind of way. You do that even when you think about things you said to a person, things you did to a person, things you know that you was out of character. But one thing that I struggle with is letting go. That was one thing that I very seldom struggle with in coming in recovery, is how do you let go of hurt? How do you let go of a person hurting you? How do you let go of a person? But see, I have to remember that this step ain't for them. This step is for me. And I understand that now. You know, because everybody ain't in recovery and everybody don't understand this step that's not in recovery, so they can go ahead on and act like nothing ever happened. You know, but I'm one of them person that I can hold on to things and don't let it go because I'm in my comfort zone. You know, to be in your comfort zone, if it makes you feel better by staying neutral or away, then sometimes we have to feed on that. And then sometimes when we get our thoughts together and we go through things and we understand that expectation on another person will make us not even want to take an inventory on that situation. But you must. We continue. It didn't say we did. It says we continue to take a personal inventory. And when I look back over y'all lives and see how we come in, even in recovery, we come in and things happen, or somebody have a misunderstanding, or somebody says something out of character, and we always have to step up and make amends and promptly tell somebody we are sorry. You know, when I came into recovery, it wasn't about telling nobody I was sorry. You know, I was fixed on me. You know, I was broken. I was fixed on me. And I had to learn that it's okay to get out of your comfort zone to understand that we have to look at steps that we can identify. And I can identify with this step. This step has helped me a lot. And some things I still need to let go of. You would think after all these years, but you have new stuff that come up. You have things that'll pop up and come up when you done dealt with the other things, but you got these things and new things that will pop up. So you have to understand that this is why I said we continue. We don't stop. We continue to take a personal inventory, and the personal inventory is good for every soul, every one of us to take. You know, feelings versus, you know, you take the feelings and the doing. The feelings is what we hold on. We use step 10 to create and maintain a conscious awareness of what we're feeling and thinking. And I know that for a fact because the stuff now that comes up, you know, it comes from feeling how you feel inside and how you going to deal with, and it's making us aware that we can feel a day. You know, I remember a time when we all was using and up under the influence of drugs. This is a disease, which I hate this disease, because this disease is still taking out people. This disease is still breaking up marriages and relationships and family and everything. So you have to really constantly take an inventory of yourself, because before we begin a regular pattern of personal inventory, it is a corrective that we understand that we are assessing that the generator fails and generates. So what that means is that we fail on some things, we didn't complete some things, you know, and that's why it's good that we take an inventory today, because when you take an inventory of yourself, you know, how many of y'all, I got a little cold, y'all, How many of y'all have just laid down in your bed and went over the inventory? Went over inventory of your daily day, and set back and versus right from wrong. You know, what we did wrong that we must make it right, or what we did right, but in some sense it became wrong. And people don't understand that, but in this 10th step, it tells us that we have to promptly admit when we are wrong. The step seems to assume that we know when we are wrong. Yeah, sometimes we don't realize that when we are wrong and do something, we don't promptly admit. I've been guilty of that. I'm guilty of that. You know, I hold on and think about it and walk past you and won't say nothing, you know, but then that I have to check me. It ain't on the next person, it's on me. Because I always have to face it. I always have to look at. That's what this step is about. Don't get too big where you can't look at this step and face this step and realize that you have to take an inventory of yourself. Inventory with your kids. Inventory with your husband or wife. Inventory with your job. Inventory with going to school or whatever you're doing. You got to take an inventory of your life and figure some things out. And we have to hold on to that and let it help guide us. You know, because people, the newcomers who come in, they haven't reached these steps. They don't even know, some of them don't even know about these steps. I know I didn't. I know when I came in, I didn't know nothing about these steps when I came in. You know, some of us, after years of serving doormats for everyone to walk across us and do the things that they did to us, we have to still take an inventory of that. Recovery requires that we become assertive and understand that everybody make mistakes, and understand that, you know, when we come into this life journey, that because we get clean, we don't get perfect. We're never perfect. We just better than what has been and better what we thought we can be. And that's a blessing for me and for you to know the difference. You know, some of us, you know, I've learned, have there been some times in recovery when I've been wrong and not been aware of it until later. Yeah, it was some things that I've done in recovery that I know that was wrong, and I didn't pay it no attention. And then later on, I take an inventory, and it pops up. And I'm like, oh, wow, you know, I was wrong about that. I got to tell this person, you know, and how do wrongs affect our lives? It don't let us grow. That's for one thing. It don't let us grow. We stay stuck. And when you stay stuck, you can't grow. Some people can still grow knowing that they mistreated somebody else or knowing that they did, but they'll call themselves a good person. They'll literally think that they're a good person, and they know they done did this person wrong. They know they didn't do this right, and then we hold on to it. They don't hold on to it because it's not for them. It's for us, you know, because we the one working the steps. We the one can identify. We the one that's in our feelings. We the one that's holding and carrying things. So we have to get out of that space of thinking that we think they supposed to promptly admit or say they sorry, and it ain't gonna happen. It just ain't gonna happen. It might happen years later. It might happen down the lines years later, but it usually don't happen. I'm just gonna be honest. They usually, some people, I've seen it with my own eyes. Some people can move on like nothing bothers them, like everything is okay, and you done hurt people's feelings. People that was good to you. Like, we were floor mats to me, because people's walked all over us, and people's will still do it today. Because we grow don't mean the next person grow. But we continue to take that inventory so we can look at ourselves and understand that, you know, something ain't right. We got to fix this. We got to look at it. We got to address it. and properly admit it. You know, I had to properly admit a lot of things when I came into recovery because I had hurt a lot of people. And I had to do an inventory, you know, and sometimes doing an inventory can be painful, especially when you know you're doing it from your heart, especially when you know you realize that what you have done, you know, that you got to do something about it. Yes, you will stay stuck. You know, that's why I tell y'all about me. I understand me. Nobody understands me no better than me. You know, so we get to a point to where how do wrongs affect our lives? They does, you know, because you have to look at it, because when we was in our addiction and we did so many things that was wrong, how did it affect us? How did it affect us? It affects me because it kept me getting high, because I didn't do no inventory. I didn't properly admit that I was sorry to nobody. I got high to get away from that. You know, I smoked dope, I got high, I did whatever thing I could do, whatever that it can make me feel better, that I didn't have to identify with taking the inventory or looking at the situation. I just got high from keeping my thought that I don't ever have to feel again. That's that thought. That's that thought that we had when we was using, but it's not a good thought because it keeps you stuck. Yeah, it's hard enough to figure out when we're wrong. It was when we was in our youth. It was when we was in our youth, but as we came in to treatment and got out of treatment and started going to meetings and started doing things and dealing with our sponsor, you know, my sponsor helped me with a lot of things, and she still helps me today. I never get too big where I don't need no help. I never get too big where I can't understand. I never get too big where I don't want to listen. You know, sometimes hurt steps in the way where you don't want to listen. You don't even want to talk. You don't even want to talk. Because me, I take it personally. Anybody else, just like we hurt people, they took it personally. So I have to learn how to deal. Why that cat ain't got nothing to eat? I had to learn how to do things. And in my ways wasn't right ways. You know, it was the things I did, it wasn't right. That's why I needed these steps to help me. And I needed my sponsor to help me work on most of all these steps. She went with me through all these steps, and I understood, you know, and we have to be careful that we are doing more damage, that we're not doing more damage in making a mission. And that means, you know, some people we just can't promptly go to, you know, like we just can't. I learned that from this 10th step. When we taking a personal inventory and when we were wrong, properly admitted it. But it's just some people that I have wronged that I could not go to. I could not personally go to them and tell them because they still holding resentments and anger like I used to carry. And I understand that. That's just what I understand. You know, so everybody ain't gonna be like me. Everybody ain't gonna figure it out. Everybody ain't gonna stand on something. They'll just keep falling for anything. But I had to learn how to become a better me. And becoming a better me made me understand how, you know, like they tell me, how often do you take a personal inventory? Well, it's daily for me. I can't speak for nobody else, but I know it's daily for me. You know, I go back, I lay back in my room and I go back. You know, I can be in one situation and thinking about another situation, you know, because I'm an overthinker. I'm always thinking. I'm always, you know, trying to understand. I always try to get, how did you do that? You don't have no feelings, or, you know, because I'm looking at my feelings. And I know if I'm hurt or doing things that I ain't supposed to do, then I know that I expect somebody else supposed to know that. I expect that. But it don't always happen like that. People walk over, even when we clean, people will still try to walk over you, not knowing that you done worked on yourself, not knowing that you have taken plenty of inventory and looked at it for what it was. And I know I've came a long ways, because I'm nothing like I'm used to be. Matter of fact, I'm better than I used to be. Because properly admitted something, or when we was wrong, that wasn't me. Because I was too busy getting high, I wasn't fit to admit nothing. I didn't even want to admit that I was an addict. I didn't even want to admit that I had a problem. I didn't want to admit that I had a disease of an addiction. I didn't want to admit none of that, because I didn't care at that time. My life was already in crumbles. I was already doing things that I shouldn't have been doing. I was already creating problems after problems. I was already blaming everybody else for my disease, blaming everybody else for my creative mind, the way I was thinking. I just didn't care. And one thing I love about recovery is when you get into recovery, you can see that light shine. You can see that change. You can see you taking the inventory and thinking about, because when you got to write all the people that you have harmed and hurt, when you got to do all that, that's taking the inventory. You got to go back to, that's why I like all these steps, because they merge in with each other. And I had to take a personal inventory of how things was happening in my life, and it wasn't good. And then don't let us, you and me, have went into treatment, and we got some good darn counselors and some therapists, and they made us look at ourselves and write things. Don't think that we didn't look at things and start taking a personal inventory of how we did things. How we did things. I tell people, one of my girls said, well, how often do I take an inventory? Every time, every chance you get, every breath you can take. Because somewhere down the line through that day, something went wrong, and we don't address it, or we don't look at it, or something we said that we could have did better, or properly admit that I'm sorry, But some people's, just stay stuck. And I couldn't focus on them. I had to focus. We need to consistently of doing something every day for it to be an inventory for me of our days. And I thank God that I understand that taking a personal inventory have created some things for me. It created some wrongs that I know I had to make it right, and properly admitted that. Taking a personal inventory, loving the caring God. I one minute when I was using, I wasn't loving and caring to God. I had even put God on the shelf. God wasn't important to me. I just got to be honest. He just wasn't important. And I remember growing up that he was the head of our house. But when you up under the disease of an addiction, you don't care about all that. You want to get high, that's all you want to do. You want to get up, get in high, go to bed, get in high. Every dime you get, you want to get high. So, I had to learn, because when I came into recovery, I crawled into recovery. Because I was at the depth of my journey in my life that I thought this is how I would die. But it ain't. The gift of life is the gift to know why you have life and the purpose of your life. Have I sought out the guidance of my high power today? Yes, I had to. I had to become to this step, or many steps before there. And I had to do that when I came to step one. Admitting that I was powers over our addiction and our lives had become unmanageable. I knew my life had become unmanageable. Ain't nobody had to tell me. Ain't nobody had to throw it in my face. I already knew my life had become unmanageable because I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop using. I couldn't stop thinking. I couldn't stop, going to buy drugs. So, and some people think they perfect because they don't do drugs or they never did drugs. They never smoked weed. But honey, you can be worse in other areas. Don't think because you ain't never did drugs or you ain't never smoked weed or you ain't never popped pills that you just as better than the next person, because you're not. Because another person can look at you and see all the other character defects that you have, and you just as bad or he just as bad as the person that do drugs. So that's why you have to take an inventory of yourself, and I did it, and I'm still doing it, and I will continue to do it, because I know that have helped me, and I know it have helped many thousands that then came into the treatment and got their lives together. We have to figure it out. Simple. We have to figure things out that we didn't try to figure out before. Sometimes it's overwhelming that gets up in our heads, and sometimes we get overloaded because we asking ourselves questions, and sometimes I don't know about nobody else, but answering some questions, and then I answer it. Ask questions, and then I answer it myself. What have I done? What have I done to be of service of God and the peoples around me? I've done a lot. Even when people have hurt me or hurt someone I love, for me not to come at you, for me not to get in a place and blur it out because I'm feeling this some kind of way, I know it's a God in my life because he keep me quiet. He keep me real quiet. It's, I can sit there and I can look and think about all the stuff I've done, but I also can think about all the stuff that was done to me. I can also remember that. And to the God and the peoples around me. I'm good to people. Anybody know me know that I'm good to. If I can't help you, I ain't going to harm you. And that's where that, taking an inventory of our lives, to where I used to harm people. I used to take from people. I used to lie to people just to get my drug of choice, just to get what I wanted, just to satisfy our needs. And we got to a point to where, people didn't want to be around us no more. They didn't want to have nothing to do with us no more. So they stopped being around us because we was a problem. We was always begging, asking, the disease of an addiction, always wanting more and more and more. What have I done? It says, what have I done to be service of God? I let him in my life. And I do what he suggests me to do. I make decisions with talking to him, and asking God, well, I did this, I did an inventory today, and God will show up and show out and let us know. And has God given me anything to be grateful for? Come on, y'all. When I look back at this step, and he allowed us to even take an inventory, allow us to be in our right mind to take an inventory, to not have lost our mind due to addiction, due to hurt, due to betrayal, due to other people's hurting us. And I look at that, and every day, that's why I say a grateful addict never used. Because I am a grateful addict, and I show you that I'm grateful. And the most important person I show is me. I show me that I'm so grateful that because I don't use. I'm never going back to that. If you want to use, that's your thing. But I learned my lesson. I burnt some bridges. I crawled on the floor. I got in a posito position because of my using. So no, I'm not using. So I've learned how to be grateful. And I stand on that. To be grateful is to never do something that you did before. And getting high is not around me. I'm not going to get high. And I done been through the ups and downs, rounds, turnabouts, and I ain't used. So I have learned something working these steps. I have learned something going to meetings. I have learned something dealing with my sponsor. I have learned something through the years where I did service work. Through the years, I used to do so much service work until it wasn't funny. So, I burnt myself out. I'm just being totally honest. I burnt myself out because I never wanted to use again. So I always stayed busy and I always stayed confronted with things that was bigger than me, and I had to figure it out without using drugs and not overwhelming myself and getting into a loop where I got to use drugs to figure it out. We know that's a lie, because using drugs and alcohol or whatever kind of drug you use, we ain't gonna figure out nothing. It's gonna create more problems for us. Do I believe that I power greater than, these are things I had to look at, create. Do I believe that a power greater than ourselves can show us how to live and be better? Yeah, I know that for a fact. I ain't gotta even figure that out. I know that for a fact. God has helped me figure out a whole lot of things. Helped me get my life together. Helped me stand on some things. God have did. I've seen all my peoples, all my friends around me. Yeah, we all make mistakes. That's if we didn't make mistakes, we wouldn't know what getting better is. We wouldn't know what to strive to fight for if we didn't know what getting better is, if we didn't do things, if we didn't say things. So yeah, I found myself, God has given me so much today, giving you so much today. I look at y'all lives too when I come to a meeting, or I got plenty of friends. I got more friends than I thought I could ever have, clean. And that to me is awesome. That to me is the most greatest thing that I've ever had other than life, is got people that's clean, that know what struggle is about, and been there, done that. So I understand that. I understand that very well. Do I see old patterns in my life today? Yeah, some old patterns will come in your life. When it says taking an inventory and promptly admit it when you are wrong or did something wrong to somebody, yeah, you're going to realize that. Do I see old patterns? Some old patterns every now and then will pop up, but you don't stay in that old pattern. You look at it for what it is and say, oh, no, I remember that. I remember I did that. I can't stay there. Have I been resentful, selfish, and dishonest, or afraid? I have. Because when it says resentful, yeah, and resentful, selfish, because, like I told you, I look at sometimes when somebody do us wrong. Hey, Cynthia, how you doing? Look at us and do us wrong. We good in holding on to it. I'm only going to speak for me because that was me. I was good for holding on to stuff and not letting go. I was good for that. And I understand that I have to let go. Sometimes when I just go beyond myself and think now, how people think they really be getting away with things, and I let them get away with it. But I don't let you, anybody know me, you ain't going to get away with nothing that I felt that was wrong or done me wrong. But I have to be careful, because I can be resentful. I can be all them things, but I try not to let that come up. I can't. I have to always take an inventory of myself, and stay in my lane. And sometimes, why I used to be the cause of confusion, now I I'm not that no more. Recovery has taught me. I see my sister Evangelist Selena's on here. Hey, sis. And I understand that taking an inventory of ourselves, because everybody got to do it. If you got a mind and a brain like mine, and God gave everybody a brain, ain't nowhere in the world you can't take an inventory. You can't take an inventory of how you argue, what brought it up. Was I wrong? Should I say I'm sorry? And somebody will go to the day, and we can say, well, okay, I'm sorry. But the next person ain't going to say they sorry because they feel like they was right. And so ain't no use you beating your head up to try to make them say they sorry. They not taking the inventory. They ain't in the place that you in. forgiving and loving and being kind. They ain't in that place. Have I set myself up for disappointment? No. I'm not going to ever set myself up for disappointment, because I know what disappointment is. I know what, that's why they say take that inventory, and how often should I take it? Every day. I take mine every day that's possible that I live, and I go through that whole day. I can lay down or go in my room, or I can sit in my truck and I can take an inventory of what happened today. What did I say that was wrong? What could I do to promptly admit it or address that issue? And maybe I could have said it a better way. Maybe I could have did it a better way. So you have to learn that. You have to understand. That's why they say take an inventory, because taking an inventory creates a better you in the inside. It ain't for the next person. Remember, it's never for the next person. It's always got to do with you. Because sometimes the next person they're going to stand on what they believe. And so when we work in a program and taking a more inventory of ourselves, we have to learn that this is for us to get better. It ain't for the next person, because the next person probably didn't have the problems that I have. The next person probably didn't do drugs. The next person probably didn't captivate their lives with all kind of bad situations, bad problems. No, it ain't for the next person. Have I been kind and loving toward all? I am. Anybody I meet. But some people, I had to learn I could still speak, or loving and kind means, for me, loving and kind mean I ain't cussed you out no more. I can still walk past you. I can still say hello. I can still do that. Because it was a time that I couldn't do that. But then I can still walk past you and still hold a little resentments or something that you have done. And that's why I have to take an inventory of that. Come on, Renee, you can't keep holding that. You got to let that go, because if you keep holding that, that's going to be stuck. If you don't know how to let it go and find a new way to live on somebody else's hurt and somebody else's decision, then you're going to become stuck. You're going to be like them, because them people stuck. I see people right now act like everything is okay. And it's hurtful, because you look at these people and you had expectation on some people's that they were just good. Come in good, and then all of a sudden you see a change. So that's what hurts us. And I don't stay on that. That's why I have to take an inventory. Have I been worried about yesterday and tomorrow? No, I can't. That's what got me high. I can't be worried about tomorrow. I can't be worried about the next day. It's just for the day with us. That's our logo, just for today. It's just for today, because whatever happens is going to happen. So you can't. I learned that out too. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. So I have to stay in the will of God to know that He's taking care of us. Even though some of us can be selfish in days and have resentments and still working on us. Remember I said we still working on ourselves. We still work. We are in a working process. I don't care how many years you got. You still, I've seen people with years and still talk about the same thing every time I see them. They don't know why they do this. They don't know why they keep doing this. Keep doing the same thing and keep doing it. I see that. I don't say nothing. But all I know, I had to get out of that stage, because I was once in that stage just like them. And they're going to have to figure it out just like I did. And they will figure it out. Some people always think the worst. Some people always think something that's telling them to cut that oven down. Some people think, excuse me, I got some beef ribs in the oven. But some people think that they can just not grow. But I had to grow. I was messed up. So I had to do something different. I had to grow and understand that that I had to be better and do something different. And so I get to a point in my life, you take it out. And in my life, to where I know I know how things are with me. You know, I know I can be a trigger for myself. Hey, grandbaby came to see me. Your hair pretty. I know I came so far. We know we came so far. You know, because look. I still deal with things from family. I ain't gonna lie. And I'll probably die like that. Because some people's just gonna be who they are. Some people's let money change them. Some people's let greed change them. Some people's, you know, feel better knowing that you are the problem and they never been, and they always the victim. So I'm dealing with that. I will continue to deal with that because I'm not going nowhere. I'm staying right here in my lane, you know. And if I don't want nobody in my life that don't love me, no way. Simple. I had to get that way because I've been broken. And when you've been broken, you got to go through different channels to get fixed. And once I got fixed, I can't let nobody hold me hostage to where I won't grow. And I know I have grown. And I ain't pleasing everybody. Everything is good. I can't please everybody. And that's the whole big key of being, you know, taking a personal inventory. Because there was days in my life that I used to try to please everybody. Straight up everybody. And I can't do that no more. Did I allow myself to become obsessed about anything? No. But I did. I know you did too. I did. I became obsessed with why you did me like that. I became obsessed when I knew I had to go get me one more. I got back. But obsessed, never since I've been clean. I turn it over to the God of my understanding. It's, you know, I turn it over. Yeah, it gets hard sometimes. But you have to know who your friends are. You have to know who the people that you deal with. You have to know that sometimes your own family members or sometimes your own children, your own cousins and mothers and fathers can hurt you more than anybody else in the world. But you learn to grow from that hurt. You know, I learned how to grow. Because you got some kids just to talk to you anyway. You got some kids that really think that they the mother and you're the kid. And I had to learn the difference. I had to learn that I'm important. I'm important. So I can't get on your level. I can't allow you to keep hurting me and doing the things that you do and me not grow. You know, I'm taking. Then it says I'm talking seriously about my life. You talking about your life, I talk about my life. I know I can't use no more simple. I know I had to change. I know I had to hit rock bottom to get to the top. I know once I got to the top that I had to stay in a humble level. I'm always humble. You know, that's why people can say you always humble, you always delightful, you always helping and giving, you always doing. Yeah, because I'm a giver. God has created me. Every time I give, I get it back 5 times more. Every time. When you're a giver, instead of trying to take or I just never, even when I was using, I lied to get some money for some drugs. I lied to do this and that. But I was always a giver. I always got you high, got this person high, off of my getting high, off of my money. So I had to learn some things. I had to understand that life goes on and show up. And taking an inventory every day, a personal inventory of your life, is to me a place in your life where you have really grown a lot. You really understand that you have grown a lot to understand that you have to keep moving on. It's on the side. And keep understanding that life shows up and goes on. Do I suffer from physical, mental, and spiritual problems? No, because the God of my understanding have helped me with all that depression, anxiety, mental doing, diagnosed. I got me some help. Some people ain't, some people still there. I got help. That's what I did. And I understand that. I love that. I love that I've got help. Have I kept something to myself that I should have discussed with my sponsor? No. My sponsor, I was open book on my sponsor. That's why I searched for my sponsor so long. And when we come into taking a personal inventory, I had to take a personal inventory even when I was in treatment. I started when I was going to meetings, and I realized I needed a sponsor that I can be honest with. For the first time in my life, I can stop holding all this bull crap. I can stop carrying all this. So I gotta wait. I gotta watch my sponsor. My sponsor gotta be everything that I want her to be, and some. And that's what I did. They kept saying, well, you got to get a sponsor. No, you don't make me get a sponsor when you want me to get a sponsor. I get a sponsor when my God and my understanding tell me that's the right sponsor. Because everybody ain't a good sponsor. I just know that for a fact. Everybody is not a good sponsor. And that's why I ain't never had no problem with mine out of 36 years. I got the same sponsor. I ain't tried to change nothing like that. Do I have extreme feelings today? Yeah, because when we taking a personal inventory and we did some things that we know that we probably got to admit, and I admitted a lot of things to the peoples I've hurt and did damage to. And so I find myself on that, I find myself in that frame of mind that I must take an inventory of myself daily. Hey, Latrice, I must daily. Even when, it's so funny because sometimes you get different friends. All friends is different. And sometimes some friends are catch me up. I'm like, what? Where you coming from? What? Why did you say that? What? And then I have to always remember, we still love them because they are friends. And their actions and reactions is going to be totally different from my reaction. So I had to learn to love a person for who they is and not judge them for what they do or say. And that has helped me better in my life than anything. Because I used to judge everybody. I used to think the worst about everybody. But now I don't. I think still good in everybody. And that's my growth. Taking that personal inventory of myself, where I have grown. And I thank God. Was there fear in my life today? It's no fear. The only person I really fear, I'm going to be honest with y'all, I fear no man, but I do fear God. I fear God to the fact to where if I go back to use, I'm in trouble. I don't want him to ever take his hands off of me. So yeah, I do fear God. I fear God the way I'm supposed to fear God. That I'm not going to let him down. That I'm not going to go back on drugs. That I made him a promise 30-something years ago. Then that's my fear, that if I do go back and he take his hand, but he's a good guy, but still that fear, I don't want to let God down, because God has brought me so far. He has kept me. He has delivered us. He have kept y'all. He have took y'all out of danger zone, even zones that you was in that was dangerous that you could not see. He came in. So that's how I look. No, I love God. The God of my understanding wakes me up and keeps me and talks to me, and he's my best friend. I got some friends, but God is my best friend. It said, what did I do that I wish I hadn't done? I ain't done nothing. To be honest, for the first time, when you're taking an inventory, you look at your life and I'm like, man, ain't nobody got no complaints. I ain't did nothing. I stay away from people that's been hurting me, or I stay, I got to do that. Ain't no use in me lying. I tried that, I go and I asking God to still work on me. I go to places and I know how you did and then you okay with it. So I have to remember, you ain't like me. Ain't nobody like me. I put it that way. Ain't nobody like me. God works with me in a way where I know ain't nobody like me. And I have to sometimes stay away. And that's just what I do. And I find another avenue. you know, somewhere else to go, somewhere else to see. You know, I just always find that it's never going to be to where I got to do this, or I got to be there, or I got to come. Oh, no, my life ain't I got to no more. My life is, what do I desire to do? Where do I desire to go? Hey, Cynthia, my cousin on here, what do I desire to do? And my desire was to change. My desire was to better me and stop pretending in my life. When you take an inventory, you know, that's what I love about this. It says, promptly, it says to myself, we continue to take personal inventory. Inventory of me, inventory of my kids, inventory of my husband, my wife, family. We have to promptly take an inventory. And sometimes when we look at things and we go off and we say things, you know, and that's why I have to be careful. But I'm going to always say what I feel. I ain't going to never stop that, because, see, when I stopped saying what I felt, I got high. When I stopped saying, that's why they say take a personal inventory of yourself. When you know you, don't nobody else know you but you. And when I stop taking the inventory of my actions or my duties or what I've said or done, I'm in trouble. So I have to take inventory, because I know that I don't speak to hurt nobody. I speak to tell myself I'm doing something right. And I always speak the truth. I always speak the truth, like, you know, you shouldn't be doing this. You know, you shouldn't hurt nobody. I've done all that. And so when I take that inventory of myself, I have to learn that some stuff might come up that I need to promptly go admit to somebody I was sorry. You know, like when I stole all that money from my mama, I had to promptly admit that I stole all that money out of my mama bra. Crawled on the floor for like it took an hour to get to her bra. I'll never forget that. That was deep, because it was my mama. I was under the influence of an addiction. And when you're up under the influence of addiction, you would do anything and everything to get your high. And I ain't got to do that today. I promptly take it says we promptly, take an inventory of our lives daily. I do it daily. You know, things I could have did better, something I could have said different, or why did I say that? Why did I hold on to that? You know, and I had to learn that. I had to really, really learn that. It says, what did I do today? I wish I hadn't done nothing. I just said that. What didn't I do today that I wish I had done? Nothing. I wanted to go somewhere today, but then I didn't want to go somewhere today. You know, so I just said, okay, well, this life that I own now, this life that God got me in, I can make decisions. If I don't want to go, I just want to go. If I want to go, I want to go. And that's how I live my life. You know, I go to a meeting. Now, I'm going to tell you something else. I used to didn't want to go to meetings, but I went and found out something different. The meeting that I didn't want to go to, that I decided to go to, was the best meeting that I could have had. So it depends on you, but I don't let nobody else determine my destination. We promptly admit and take an inventory of our lives. And I can take an inventory of how somebody did, and I can find myself still staring at you trying to figure out why you did that. I can just see all the ugly. But that ain't my job. My job is to let go of that and move on, because if I don't, I'm stuck. But I ain't going to be around. I'm not a fake person. I can't be phony. I just never, even when I was getting high, you knew I was getting high. I was boisterous and mean or whatever. But God then came into your life. When God come into your life and you taking an inventory of your life, everything that's in your life should be not perfect, but be better. And I had to find that out. Hey, Michelle, I had to find that out, that your life get better. But if you don't promptly take an inventory of your life and you just go on with your life and keep doing things and keep hurting people and keep not understanding and don't want to understand, you know, you messed up. You're going to be messed up. So I had to learn how to take an inventory. And it has helped me so much in my journey. to take an inventory. You know, I've said something to my kids sometime, and I have to say, you know what, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Devontae. I'm sorry, to my kids. I shouldn't have said it that way. Do you forgive me? All I want to know is you forgive me. And they'll say, yeah, Mom, yeah. See, I have to promptly admit, because we as human beings make mistakes. And if we can't see that we make mistakes, then we ain't growing. We didn't grow. Some people just gonna be who they is. You can't change them no matter what you say or do or speak. They just gonna be them. Cause this program, hey Charlotte, this program ain't for them. It's for me. It's for me to live a life. They say a grateful addict could never use. I done showed me I'm grateful. I ain't never picked up nothing. Only thing I ain't picked up, every now and then I'll puff a cigarette. But other than that, I ain't picking up nothing that can confuse my mind, that can confuse my thinking. And I ain't crazy, y'all, because I know drugs and alcohol would have me, in a place that you wouldn't even recognize me. That's why I'm too scared to use drugs. Just like I respect Skittles, I ain't never eaten another Skittle. I'm on the highway and choked on the Skittle, and it was trying to take my life, and I had to beat my chest up and call on the God of my understanding, and that Skittle popped out. Well, that's how I respect drugs. I respect you enough to stay away from you. I'm going to do my inventory on my daily activities. And when I do an inventory on myself, I can always look at something, if it ain't for one thing, and do better. And I don't mind saying I'm sorry. I don't mind apologizing. I don't mind telling you I shouldn't have did it that way. I don't mind that, because there was a time in my life I couldn't say that. All I did was got high. I couldn't even let you know how I was feeling and how I felt. So that's a big A+ for me. Am I maintaining my personal integrity in my relationship with you? Yes. I'm going to always do that. I treat everybody the way I want to be treated. I treat everybody nice. Everybody I treat nice. I don't mistreat people. So I thank God that I'm where I am. And I hope taking an inventory, everybody, even if you ain't addicted to drugs, you might be addicted to something else. But if you don't take an inventory on that, on your daily lives, you ain't growing. You gotta, I can have a big argument, and all of a sudden I can take an inventory and figure out, now, you didn't have to say it that way. You could have did it different. I can't control the next individual, but I can control me. I can understand me. Hey, Robin, well, we all praying for you. Robin just lost her mother. She's in recovery. She's my sweetheart. And she just lost her mother a few days ago. And we praying for her. And I know that she's going to keep focused. And she know that she have worked hard to stay clean. And this is just another journey that we put in our life story. And that she know we love her. And she must let us know that that we're here for her. She just have to let us know. That's it. And keep us posted. And y'all pray for Robin for me. She's a good girl. She's clean. And I love her. And she's doing well. And I know what it is to be in recovery and lose a mother or a loved one or a son. And you can't use. You just got to deal with the feelings and the flow. And let other people come in and be your adversaries of friendship, and I thank God. So, like I said, I'm going to close. I got to cook these chicken and dumplings. That's the last thing. I'm going to throw these dumplings in there. And so my thing is to you all, it says we made a direct amends. That step 10. That step 10 was very powerful for me, because that step 10 lets me know, even though I got all these years, I still got to take an inventory, a personal, something that I own, me, personal inventory. And when I do something wrong or have did something wrong, we have to admit it, to stay truthful to ourselves. And I thank y'all. I thank God that And God has allowed us to be clean another year, and here's another week that went by. And if ain't nobody told you that they love you, tell them, Renee, I said it. You heard what I said. I said I love you. And I'm going to close with one of our best prayers, our best things that I like. And it says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, and the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom, did you hear me? The wisdom to know the difference. I thank y'all. I'll see y'all on next week. You know, it ain't no stopping me. I'm figuring out some more things, but right now I'm okay where I'm at. Next week we will be on step 11, and step 11 is we're almost getting to the ending part. It said, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry the message out. Now that's a deep one for me, and I'm gonna tell you, and it's gonna be a deep one for you all too. I love you. God bless you. Y'all have a safe rest of the Sunday, and I'll see you next week.